not what you interpret. Poor people governor with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. I'm responsible for what I say, not what you interpret. Welcome to this episode of Conversation with Poor People Governor. Today we have in studio the Honorable Vince Troy Jordan, Member of Parliament. And I know he wears a lot of hats, but today we're speaking to him as a Member of Parliament. And the Honorable Coretta MacDonald, Member of Parliament as well. And we're speaking to her as a Member of Parliament. She wears a lot of hats as well. Oh, what is going on in Guyana? Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? Welcome to Governor's Show.
Hi, good
Are you guys?
afternoon,
Yeah.
Governor. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to your listening audience.
Yes, sir. How are you, Miss McDonald?
Well, good afternoon to you. Thanks for having me here. I am blessed, truly blessed. I'm a Guyanese, and so I'm happy and I'm proud to be a Guyanese because I stand on the motto that says one people, one nation, one destiny.
One people, one nation, one destiny, and not one Guyana. Okay, the word honorable. It's a nice word. It defines a person that the ordinary poor people could relate to and say, well, that is an honorable person, that's a respected person. But then when we look across the aisle to the PVP corners, we have members of parliament that portrays to be honorable or carries the name honorable minister or the honorable president. But indeed, they're horrible and not honorable. And one would look at
You
4
know
years in.
what?
You saying something? Yeah, one would look at 4 years in office, and the president have went to parliament once. Now schedule to go to parliament to speak to the nation on high cost of living. Is that by accident? How do we put to our people that a president that claims he care in 4 years address the nation from a parliamentary perspective once in 4 years? How do we tell our people that this government, PPP government, cares? As parliamentarian, how do you respond? Mr. Vince Roy.
Well, Governor, I would respond in this way. Parliament or going to Parliament tomorrow to speak to cause as we would gather that much is as a result of his government's incompetence. Because you don't have to wait on a special sitting to come to the National Assembly to address costs of living. You have to ensure that your national budget caters for cost of living and the lowering of such. You have to ensure that your programs within the regional level caters for high cost of living. You have to ensure that your programs within every sector within the different ministries, that it also caters for the high cost of living. And so Ali now coming to play some Pharaoh in the midnight of death is not going to work by saying to people that he's coming to address cost of living. Last year, there were about $6 billion in the national budget to address high cost of living. And let me just back up. The fact of high cost of living is not a Guyanese issue. It is a global issue. And because it is global, it is not foreign to any government. It is not foreign to any parliamentary institution having the understanding that, look, it is a crisis that spill off from COVID-19, from the war in the Middle East, Ukraine, and it is global. And so we understand it. But in Guyana, our high cost of living is compounded a group of incompetent, headless, and visionless people who live. And Ali, having sat with his ministers and his second vice president, you saw them early in the year in a nice photo, sitting in a living room and finalizing the budget. They knew at that point in time that Guyana is suffering and the Guyanese are suffering as a result of high cost of living. Guyanese expected that in the course of the year, that with an allocation of $7 billion, that the government would implement plans, will roll out certain strategies that it will, over a period of time, cushion what we will normally say the rise in cost of living. And so we expected that from the time we cooperated with them and passed the national budget in February or latter part of January of this year, that by March, there would have been plans and programs in place so as to cushion the high cost of living. And so Ali would not have to come, especially one day, as is dated tomorrow, the 10th of October, to he is Lord and God over everything, and he sort of special goodies for Guyanese. What, as a matter of fact, to do tomorrow, from my understanding, is to complete is gross incompetence by now saying to Guyanese that I wake up and I'm going to try to fix what is affecting Guyanese. And so I clearly don't see him something with purpose and something with meaning. He could over at not Church Street, Michael offices, where his residences, sit down with all we do and just read out those things and say, Guyanese, this is what I want you to understand. We're going to give you X and we're going to give you. But he's coming to Parliament tomorrow and with of having a lot of says and all sorts of craziness that he's going to be speaking. And so his intention is to come not only to speak to Guyanese, but to provoke an opposition that is very much steadfast, an opposition that is prepared a nation, having plans and policies in place, having programs being set. And as a matter of fact, we would have already highlighted through the speech the MPs would have given in our budget presentation, and that of the leader of the opposition, stating to the government several programs, several plans that could be implemented in a very short period of time, and in the end result being that it will cushion, it will bring relief to Guyanese in this time of high cost of living.
Thank you. I'd like to bring Ms. McDonald in if she's there. Ms. McDonald is not there. Okay. High cost of living.
Hi, I'm here again. You know what? I don't know why they always play with me like this, you know. When I attempt to do my program on Wednesdays, they're doing all kinds of things. I'm here, I switched to my mobile data, and they're still trying to do me all kinds of things. But don't worry, our message will get out.
Oh, sorry for the inconvenience that the PVP, let me say, is causing on you. They're doing all kinds of things. Ms. McDonald, how do you respond to the president appearing to do some damage control for neglecting the Guyanese people over 4 years by coming to Parliament tomorrow to probably say what we already know?
Let me say this first of all. This is not neglect. This is a willful act. What has been done over the last 4 years, it's willful. So it's not a case where you are tempted to do and then you forget, and at some point, things happen and you fall short. What is happening is what this government has done willfully. And I'm saying that because when we look around, in several communities, we can compare and we can contrast what is happening in several communities. And you're seeing some communities are well favored. Other communities, they are worse than stepchildren. As a matter of fact, just today I saw the mayor of Linden talking about Minister Hugh Todd visiting Linden and only meeting with the Venezuelans and not meeting with the residents of Linden. So this is not neglect. This is a willful act. And if willful and neglect could go together, I prefer to use willful. But you know what? The other thing that they've mastered doing, and I think by now they probably get their doctorates and so in it. They have mastered creating confusion, and then they appear like Jesus, like the angels, like savior to the people, and you come to say, "Oh, you know what? I didn't know this. Oh, I wasn't aware. Oh, we don't have this. Oh, when paper sharks got shot on Main Street. Oh, the cameras weren't working. When the drugs was found till in Norway, the people there had all the footages. And in Guyana, you heard the cameras weren't working and they didn't know. So what they have mastered, like I said, is the art of being able to willfully not offer to the Guyanese public or the Guyanese citizens a good life. And then they come like Mary and Jesus, as if they're the savior, and they now come to bring hope to you. What the president is coming to do in Parliament tomorrow is not what they did not do before. The only difference here is he ain't got the full tact of doing it like Jagdio would do it, Jagdio would come and cuss you out on Thursday and then he return the next Thursday with a whole different story. So Airfred didn't master that part as yet. But I'm not going to be surprised if Airfred doesn't come there to say, one, he's offering, look, my government is concerned about teachers, so we're offering teachers this. Because up to now, since the teachers signed, the teachers union's president and the second vice president signed that agreement, the teachers can't get their 10% yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come there to make that announcement and to make an announcement generally for public servants. I wouldn't be surprised if April Ali turn up there tomorrow to talk about the plane that they found at in Lethem there and other planes that we found other places to say, but my government is going to be doing this and that and that. These people are alarmists. So it's Airfront, Priya, Jagdio, the whole pack of them. Anil, what Batilayan, the whole pack of them. They're sort of alarmists. And so he will come there tomorrow, like I said earlier, to behave as if he's the savior. But we don't buy it because we've seen through that. So I am not surprised about anything that Airfront will come there to make any announcement about tomorrow. But as a respectful and a responsible citizen who was elected by the people to represent them, we will go out there, as parliamentarians. That's our duty. We will go there to listen to Mr. Airfront, to hear what Mr. Airfront Ali has to say. We will be there as good representatives of the people.
Thank you. Good representatives indeed. Which brings me to my next question. On the high cost of living, the president is coming to speak to Guyanese about high cost of living. I think it's a minute too late. And knowing Vince Roy is from number 5, he's always on the ground. You yourself is always on the ground, Miss McDonald. What is it like on the ground for persons, the ordinary Guyanese, the poor class Guyanese? How the struggle, we know the struggle is real. We get calls every day. What is your engagements with the people on the ground with the high cost of living? Mr. Jordan.
Well, I will put it this way. The people are fed up of having to struggle day after day, month after month, and for 4 years. If we look at it very carefully, the people who are closely aligned, People's Progressive Party, Civic, they are living their best life, with no doubt, their best life. But when you go into the streets and you go into the nooks and the crannies, you will find our ordinary Guyanese, the ones who still got to buy 5 pounds of sugar, the ones who still got to buy 2 pounds of flour, the people who still got to buy 3 Banga Mary, and you got people who still got to buy green pepper and cook. But you see, that don't reach to Ali. Ali, they don't see that, they don't know. Because we go and we see and we feel and we understand what is affecting our people. As a matter of fact, I go to the grocery shop, well, the supermarket, so to put it, every single month. As a family, we go to the supermarket. And you know what? I have to push the trolley, and then I have to go to the counter, and I have to stand in front of the cashier. And in that very supermarket, you would see people who, when they buy stuff, when they reach to the cashier, I'm just giving you a typical example. They ask the cashier, they say, look, check it up and see when it reached 10,000 or 15,000, and the other things, we can put it back. So when it reached 10 or 15, corrected, they start putting back the other things. It is not because they don't want it or they're not in need of the others, but they simply cannot afford it. And that is the level our people they have gone to. I want you to understand also that Guyanese just about 4.5 years ago could have walked into the supermarket, a teacher with her salary, a policeman with his salary, a clerk in the public service or the public sector, and they could have gone and purchased as much as they wanted and had everything that they need, because at that time the government understood that you need to compensate workers not only for what they do, but their pay package must meet the level to the prices that are in of commodities in the supermarket and elsewhere. And so our government skillfully, and they might talk a lot about David Granger and Winston Jordan, but all aside, they saw it fit to put public servants into their pockets 77% over the 5 years, so that it would cushion as they go by year after year and budget after budget, so that they can meet what is the demand in the grocery shop or in the supermarkets. But if you go to the streets now, and I've been going to Bushlot, I've been going to recently I went to Champagne Creek, Myconi. I was in Bath Settlement, and you know what the people are saying to us? I was in Forty Village, Seafield, and the people are saying to us that they cannot afford to live. That is how terrible it is. They cannot afford to live. And when you cannot afford to live, comrade poor people, Governor, you're in a terrible place. And so Ali coming to say to Guyanese whatever he wants to say tomorrow, Ali put on the table, which I know don't go past 8 and 9%. They're specialists in 6 and 5%. So I don't expect, and I wouldn't want public servants to be anxious over anything, because they wouldn't go. I would challenge them to go past 10 and 15%. Of course, they would have already said in the contract for the teachers that was signed that should public servants receive anything more than 10%, they are going to receive it. They're setting them up to know that, or it is a setup to know that you're not going to go past 10%. The case closed. It didn't pass it 10%. So there's nothing that you should be anxious about, you know? And so the situation, to wrap it up, of my understanding and assessment in the fields, is that Guyanese cannot afford to live. Guyanese are at the brink of to a point of frustration that some of them husbands are not going home. Poor people. These are typical examples. You go to some homes, And
Mhm.
people tell you the husband come home for the weekend because the money we get can't do for the house on a
Mhm.
weekend. And husbands, I'm telling you, this is reality. Husbands are fearful of going home because they don't have enough to give. You know, this very same Gaisuko that they're talking about. I have a lot of friends in Gaisuko. The very same Gaisuko that they're talking about. You go at one of the pay centers on a Friday afternoon to those weekly workers, Friday morning, midday hours, and you ask them when they collect that pay slip and that little white envelope, if they're comfortable going home, they start buy. I mean, I even know what next for do because I mean, can't go with this can't even buy sugar, can't buy rice. It cannot do, cannot meet the ordinary man. The simple grocery bill it cannot meet. And then we're gonna talk about electricity. We're gonna talk about water. We're gonna talk about transportation for school children because this heartless and uncaring government took away the school buses. They took away what we had put in place to help cushion. And when you look at it, David Granger and his government had a holistic approach to really meeting the needs of Guyanese in every corner. Because when we commissioned David G number 1 and 2 in region number 5, they were the first. We were the first to receive the school buses. Of course, he loved Region 5 with a special touch.
I
But
love that. Love that.
the children could have gone to school, and of course, we had one bus before, and so it was three. So the system was set up in such a way that children could have gone to school um, from the sub region 1 and sub region 2 and not have to pay for the cost of transportation. Parents were comfortable. They said that $2,000 or $3,000 a week could have gone to something else. Today, our mothers and fathers are crying out because they're saying to us that they have to spend far more to send the children to school than they were doing when it was the time of the coalition in office. And I can continue to list so many other cases that
Mhm.
are reflecting our people. But I'll give my good friend Coretta also an opportunity. And the next time I you have us, comrade, people governor, you have to allot about 2 or 3 hours when it's two people like Coretta and I.
Indeed. Indeed. Just before bringing Miss McDonald, it is widely reported that this last CPL cricket finals, um, the VIP tickets were $15,000 and $20,000, and it's my understanding that the premium drinks and the champagne was rolling in by the case, as well as they had curry in all the animals, crapo curry, fish curry. They had all the curries in all the animals. Say that to say this: we there's a high cost to living, and the government choose to invest billions of dollars in premium drinks and curry goat and curry this and curry that,
Mhm.
and we as poor people are crying to the government, literally begging that the cost of living is causing a problem with the ordinary people. You claim persons can't go home to the wife. Is this government really and truly caring? Miss McDonald, help we understand what is happening, man.
Let me start off by saying when we talk about the poor and ordinary people, there are different categories. We got the pensioners who all they depend on is that almost $40,000. And you know how those numbers reached there? It was because of the coalition government. Vince Roy will tell you that the pension that the ordinary the pensioners used to receive was some 7,000 or something. And the coalition brought it up to double figures. But when we look at the ordinary pensioners, with just 39,500, 300 something dollars, wherever it is. A pound of sugar can't last them a whole month. They have to buy fruits. They got to buy rice. They got to buy oil. They got to buy provision. They got to buy eggs. They got to buy flour. They got to buy fish. I don't know how they're surviving. So that's one grouping of people. When we talk about the second grouping of people now, poor and ordinary people, And I want to share, let me share here, the people at Joanna Sarah or Sarah Joanna, those ordinary poor people whose homes were demolished. I ain't come to Mocha yet. When you look at those persons there who have 3 and 4 and 5 children, all schooled age, plus a baby, the wife is not working, but the husband is an ordinary carpenter. You tell me how they're able to survive. I was there two weeks ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Some of them are still living under blue tent. Huh? What you call it? The thing that you put on the thing that you put on the
Tarpaulin.
Tarpaulin.
blue tarpaulin. You have at least 2 families are still living on the blue tarpaulin because they don't have the monies to rebuild their home that was demolished. So they're still going by neighbor to bathe, to use the toilet, and to cook and so on. But they're sleeping on the tarpaulin. How are they able to survive when sugar is $500 a pound? You got to make porridge for baby. You got 5 school-age children. They got to drink tea in the morning. You got to make tea porridge for baby. Baby porridge got to get sugar. You got to use sugar to do this. You got to get rice. I don't know. You go to the market, a little thing like this. I don't know if you've seen the size of this. That's $500 and $1,000 borrow. So if you talk about a family of 5, you know how many $500. I don't know how they're getting that. Don't talk about chicken yet. Don't talk about eggs that we produce right here. And mind you, bora, squash, pumpkin, everything, okras, everything, corral and so on, we producing them right here. And don't talk about the prices for those things. So if we were to do the calculation, you will recognize that in many, many of our homes, families are hardly using the vegetables that we produce right here. But let me skip those and come to us, like my colleague Vince Roy, who are parliamentarians, and you receive not what quite a lot, not what people think out there, but you receive a parliamentary salary of $246,000. Let me tell you what, it's hard for me, for Vince Roy, for my other parliamentary colleagues who sit on the opposite side of the house. Because when you go to the market or you visit the supermarket, you won't even take up half a trolley yet. And it's 100 and something $1,000. And you're going with anything fancy. Much more the ordinary Guyanese whose salaries are 80,000, 90,000, 120,000. So let me tell you what, things tight, as Sharon would say. And it's by the mercies of God that people are surviving in this country. So when you see all of them jump up and talk about progress and progress, I don't know what progress they're talking about. And let me bring it home a little closer. Our teachers in Guyana, their salaries range between 98,000 to about 300 and something thousand. And 300 and something thousand is the highest paid worker. An ordinary teacher whose salary is, let's say, $110,000, living in Bartica, living in Warramadong, where a bottle of gas is $16,000. You hear me? Not 6,000, $16,000 for a bottle of gas. 1 pound of chicken is $1,500. 1 sack of carby rice is $8,000. You hearing me? A bottle of water, the regular small bottle of water is $500 for one that we buy in Georgetown for $100 or $120. You tell me how those families are making it. But then you see this government jump around the place with the crazy self to talk about progress and things have grown. Yes, we're the fastest growing economy. We're the little Dubai, but people punishing here more than ever. During the last 4 years, the amount of suffering that has taken place in Guyana, I don't think if we were to put the time, that period under which Burnham ruled as president or as prime minister of the country, I don't think people were suffering then, because you know what? They had then black eyed peas, split peas, everybody they planting something, and everybody neighbor they giving them something, and so people were surviving. Coconuts, you shared that with your neighbors. You share, now people can't afford to share with anybody. So you could imagine what is happening. And as a result of that, as a result of the poverty, we got all the social ills in society, teenage pregnancies, crime on the increase, school dropouts. I heard Vince Roy talking about the buses and so on. Don't let me even mention those. Because if in this age, as the new Dubai, quote unquote, of the Caribbean, and we got 73 or 63 pit latrines that children have to use, then you tell me where the progress is. So let's talk about cost of living. Let's talk about conditions that teachers and children have to still survive under. That there should be saying to Irfan and his government, it's time for y'all to pack up shop and go. Because if with all of this money is you handling and children have to use pit latrines, then we in no way. The other thing is, I visited Denamstel yesterday. Well asphalted road in one of the back streets. When I visited that community yesterday, you know what I'm seeing? That road has been dug up. That entire road, that entire stretch of road has been dug up. You know why? Because another friend got to get a piece there. So it's billions gonna be rolling out to do the same road 2 times. And ordinary people in this country continue to suffer while the elites continue to live the big fancy lives.
Unbelievable. Well, like you say, it's the mercies of God. So it's not by a fast growing economy, it's the mercies of God. I want to turn my attention to corruption, which we want to get a clear understanding that there is nothing that the president can come to parliament and tell the nation. And there's so many things that is going on, so many corruption. I don't know where to start, so I leave it to the expert, the members of parliament, and you're tuned to Conversations with Four People Governor, and we have in the studio the Honorable Vince Roy Jordan, Member of Parliament, and the Honorable Coretta MacDonald, Member of Parliament. Mr. Jordan, corruption.
Well, sir, I think when you say corruption, the people over at Rob Street just clap. When we say corruption, they just be rejoicing. Oh, yeah. You're talking about we. Yeah.
That's my name, yes.
Because every single ministry, every single sector, every single agency, with no apology, in Guyana is corrupt.
Preach, my brother.
Every single one. And I like the zoning.
Ministry of Education.
I like the zoning on my area of shadow. But I'll touch on a few others. But when it comes to Ministry of Agriculture, I believe Irfan wanted to come to Parliament should tell us about those 5 or 6 audits that Zulfikar Mustafa has initiated, and you can't get no result from them until a day like today. Let him tell us about the $50 million at Albion Estate that turned into $600 million to fix a panel, powerhouse, the control room. Let him tell us about the sugar that they said went missing at Rosal Estate, and that the 2 managers were fired. If I'm going to tell Guyanese why on earth, when the coalition speak about corruption at MMA ADA, that it is only then they know they got to suspend a staff for 6 months. It is only then they know that Zulfikar got to come to listen to farmers and ask them if they have any issues with lands and disputes with lands and leases and any sort of issues with regards to the board. Irfan got to tell us when he come to the National Assembly tomorrow, how come after the Minister of Agriculture left a meeting with farmers at MMA ADA just a few days ago, that after that he initiated an audit into land leases and issues with rice farmers. And a prominent member of the board of MMA who appears to be the chairman of the board. He is the chairman. He is the general manager for MMA. He is the proprietors for the lands. He's everything at MMA. And how come that person could have sold 115 acres of lease of lands that belong to the state, lease land to a prominent rice farmer in Maikoni? And these are the levels of corruption that I have when you begin to speak about it, you know what people say, insiders turn up. When you talk about corruption and you go to the same agency and the Regional Democratic Council, the engineer getting contracts. Well, Jack just spoke about it in Region 8, but this thing is nothing new. Jack Joe got to come to Region 5 and see the engineer getting contracts. Allegedly, the vice chairman and chairman of the region, they're getting contracts in different names with their friends, families, and favorites. Senior officials of the RDC, they're getting contracts. Everybody building a road, building a bridge, building a street. And you know what is the big problem now? Is that works that were costing just about $8 million under the coalition to build a street with the same material, same size, and so on, according to the estimate, contract engineers estimate. It is now $40 and $50 million for the same street. It is money for the boys. Contractors who woke up early in 2020, August the 3rd, when after Ali was sworn in on the 2nd, installed, they woke up on the 3rd and they became contractors. They suddenly knew that they have special skills. One, they call him Tupio or Tupie, whatever they call him. $900 and something million, $800 something million, 600 something pump stations handing out to people who barely could talk on a talk show. And we find that these are the very close friends and favorites of the People's Progressive Party. We find that some of them are brothers and sisters. You move around the country and you would understand that several of the contracts, and it is alleged again in Region 6, in the latter part of last year, they gave out a number of contracts, and out of the contracts, people had to go to Freedom House in Main Street, and they had to, that is in Region 6, and they had to give notes they had to agree that when they would have received the monies, they were going to give back. So you got to give a certain percentage back to Freedom House. And this is not the people on the street coming to tell us this, my brother. These are people in the People's Progressive Party who are fed up of the level of corruption because they themselves, their lives and their living conditions have not changed. A few who are right thinking, I would want to say. And when you put, the PPP on your fingers, from 1 to 10, you put a few members, you're going to find 1 out of the 10 who got a little right thinking and so on. And the people would tell you when they go to distribute cash grant right here in Region 5 last month or the month and a half ago, I had to snap out of some comments and some posts from ordinary Guyanese living in Bath, Settlement, Cotton Tree, Belgium, and those places where they went to distribute the money. And the people said that they ain't get none. They never know when they went and take down the names. They never know that PPP suddenly sharing money. But they put a list. My neighbor get because she is this one niece. My friend get because she's this one uncle. And you name it. And when you come to the bottom line, the haves continue to have. They have not continue to not have nothing. And that is the trend. That is the normal. So Ali got to tell Guyanese when he come tomorrow in the National Assembly how he's going to fix this nonsense of, because it is obvious that because of the high level of corruption, it takes away from the reality or the real measures that the ordinary man is supposed to get. It takes away from the economy. And so when you have a budget, and you have a budget of $1 trillion, but then a large portion of it goes out in infrastructural projects, and a large portion of that goes out into feeding into corruption. It therefore means that a huge chunk of the budget is really prepared to go into the hands of the friends, families, and favorites, coupled with those flatterers on the side. And so they all receive, but the ordinary man doesn't receive, my
Mhm.
brother. They are left to suffer. And Ali got to understand that Guyanese no longer waiting in like 1989 when I was born, or in 1990s, or those years. People got to wait on somebody to come and write a note and tell them corruption is in Guyana. We see it every day on social media. It is evident before our eyes. We see it in our very communities. We see it everywhere we go. And so Ali must understand, if he is going to come and speak to Guyanese tomorrow and to tell them what he wants to say, that he must first justify how corruption and all the other irregularities that is happening in Guyana would, one, be dealt with. And as a matter of fact, you have to tell Guyanese how it reached to the point. How it reached. But you know what? I am very much sure that Ali cannot say anything to that regard. Because if the vice president knew that the one engineer from Region 8, I think was 28 million or something, he don't collect the money. And if he knew that he did that and he collect the money, why he didn't sack him? Why the vice president didn't sack you or say, but you know, he come on his press conference and he say, you know what? He has a
Mhm.
choice between keeping the job or making the millions. And with, although he has a choice, he's still on the job. You check today, he went to work. And Guyanese are seeing that. And you know what is more troubling for the PPP? Is that
Mhm.
the people in their own community. Look, I went to Champagne Creek. The people said to me, they said, MP, we're glad you come. This is a predominant Indo-Guyanese and PPP supported community. But I recognize, and the coalition recognize, the People's National Congress, of which we are a part of, we know for a fact that this corruption, it cuts across every sector. It doesn't matter whether you're supporting the PPP or not. This discrimination, it cuts across every sector. It cuts across every race, every religion. It knows no boundary when it comes to the PPP. So I went to Champagne Goodly one afternoon, and the people begin to pour out. And I had to go back, and they begin to pour out again. The one sickly man said to me, he said they used to get health visit every single month, twice from the coalition government. A boss and members from the public health department used to go in there, treat them for diabetes, you know, you name it, whatever it might be, test the pressure, the sugar, the whatever it might be, deal with them. He said the school was falling down. The coalition built it, a brand new primary school.
Mhm.
He said the road, and Priya Manik love to talk about who building school and who building school. But I want you to go to Champagne. She used to live very close to Champagne. She just got to cross the river to the other side, and she would see that coalition built that school. When you go to the top part of Champagne, of which we know, the people said, MP, it overmarked, things not regular, because they said and they worker can't get his cash grant, but all them family and friends for the 10 days, they get them. You go to the bottom side, and they tell you they can't tell the last day that the PPP, that they visit the area. You got leaks on the street. The one Susan Rodriguez and Colin Cole is talking about effective and efficient Sheikh Bash. Sheikh Bash is the waste of everything since he went to GWI. He needs to get packing as if it was 2nd of August 2020. When you ask the people about the cash grant, who received it, who didn't receive it,
Mhm.
was everybody who is not affiliated to the PPP, although they support the PPP, did not receive it. And so, my friend, Guyana is in a very, very dark place. I was talking to a young man the other day during one of my walkabouts, and the young man said, things dark. Guyana, you know, they you normally use this slang, it dark up here. And so he was washing cars, and, you know, I was trying to encourage him. And he said he can get no work, he can get nobody for give him anything, nothing. And the government doing as they please. So he said, MP, things dark, 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 dark. So I'll end on that note. Things dark.
Dark indeed. Things extra dark. Miss McDonald, I don't know if you could fit in there, but
Well,
yeah,
you know,
Mr.
Kobe
Jordan has,
Governor,
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
when I think about this government, And we've added this to them. They see at the end of the PPP stands for corruption. So it's PPP corruption, not civic. And we have been saying this all along. For Guyana to grow, the PPP got to go. When you talk about an audit, the audit that was done at the Natural Resources Ministry, which talks about Exxon, I'm sure you remember that. 211 million US dollars that was written off. $211 million. Irfan must come to Parliament to tell us about that. Who gave an ordinary public servant the authority to write that off? And you know what he got? According to them, 15 days suspension of 15 days. And they said 15 days pay was taken away from his salaries. I can't prove it and you can't prove it, so we don't know if it happened. $211 million cannot be accounted for, you know. That audit came down to $3 million. 3 million US. Now somebody needs to tell us where the 211 went and who gave the authority. Not the minister. The minister claimed he didn't know anything about it. An ordinary public servant, he claimed did that. Irfan must tell us about that tomorrow. Irfan must come to Parliament to tell us why Bamia Primary School can't finish up to now. And they've asked for additional monies. You know, they took away St. Rose's from Courtney Ben. They took away, I think it's one of the secondary schools on the highway, Dora or somewhere there from Brian Tiwari, because they claimed they couldn't finish the work in the specified time. They took it away from them. But Bamia, the people who got the contract for Bamia, they're still holding the contract and they're asking for more monies. Irfan must come to tell us about that. Irfan must come to Parliament to tell us why the Namstel police station was awarded, the contract was awarded for 90 million, and now that contract has been extended 2 times the amount. He must come to tell us what happened there. Irfan must tell us why one company could win 40 contracts to provide pharmaceuticals in this country. Irfan must tell us that. How come one company could win 40 contracts when they had a whole lot of companies who made their biddings there? Irfan must come to tell us why we have so many schools that are being constructed. And when you look at the construction, you want to know if it's some little boy or little girl, they're playing with mud. You know, when you're small, you play with mud, you're mixing mud with water, you're making mud man and mud girl and so on, and mud house. They must tell us. Irfan must come to tell us why those things are happening and nobody is being sanctioned. Irfan Ali must come to Parliament tomorrow to tell us why the PS from Human Services Ministries resigned with immediate effect when we had the scandal of the old age pension books and the public assistance books. He must tell us that. And he must tell us why 2 weeks after she was appointed HR at GRA, Irfan must come to tell us those things. And if that is not enough, Irfan must come to tell us why the Guyana Police Force that is supposed to protect and serve, why they got such a big scandal there with a senior police officer. Irfan must come to tell us that, those kinds of things. And if he can't answer those questions, then don't come to Parliament, because we're going to shut you out when you come there to talk. Irfan must come to Parliament to tell us why he cannot up to today appoint Yonette Cummins and Roxanne George, but he wants to appoint Clifton Hickins. He must come to Parliament to tell us those things. And so we understand where the corruption is and where the corrupt people are. And so if you look around, look at Irfan when he walks around, you can identify the people around him and all those who would have had criminal past. You look at Batty Lion, a.k.a. Charles Ramson. Look at the people he got around him. So these are the kinds of corruption that they are part and parcel of. Irfan must come to tell us why the Guyana Police Force and the Guyana Defense Force, they are not aware of all of these illegal airstrips that we got. And you think they know? They very well know. All the drugs, why nobody in Region 1 was sanctioned for the tunnel that they found the drugs in? Huh? They find a plane just the other day in Region 9, and then the police officers claim that working on intelligence, they went to the site. Imagine you going to a site based on your intelligence with an ATV bike that making noise. You get what I'm saying? So the corruption is rampant, and all we could find is that they found some cell phones and some change of clothing, and two men get away and they hold one man because he fall off of some pickup. And there is no radio that they could call and ask for backup anywhere. Now these people, like Vince Roy said, they think we back in time. We big, but we ain't stupid. Chinese people born a night, but it wasn't last night. And so when you talk about the corruption, don't let me go to Ministry of Education yet. They got a big scandal right now with literacy money that somebody who in charge of it they can't account for these monies. But these things are always covered down because you know what? Is a somebody here getting a payback for somebody so and somebody so. I remember we had another incident in education where you had all these glorious books that they made that they called the big books for the nursery schools. Plenty wrong spelling. As a matter of fact, let me finish with this. Plenty wrong spelling, wrong pictures. And those big books were scrapped after hundreds of millions of dollars were used, to produce them. And up to today, you don't hear nobody get sanctioned for it. Then we had the exercise books. Vince Roy, you remember? The exercise books with the wrong tables. The exercise book with the wrong wording, with the wrong information in it. You won't hear nobody get sanctioned for it. Well, of course, we can't get nobody sanctioned because if Priya could stand up and say she is a preposition, then you understand where we are. But the corruption is rampant in Guyana. And the corruption is from the top. So we can't beat up the man at the bottom. The corruption starts at the top. And if you remember, policemen have been saying, well, I just gotta go collect the bag for me, boss, man. I just gotta go there and collect the bag for me, boss, man. And who's your boss, man? Some senior police officer. And so here is where the corruption continues under the PPP. So what we had between 2015 and 2020 was a little ease and press and comfort for the Guyanese people. But you see, after August 2020, y'all remember what happened? 2 days after, might have been 1 day after, big cocaine bust. And so this is saying to us that anywhere the PPP appear is corruption. Anywhere the PPP turn up is corruption because that's their livelihood. You forget the interview with Vice News? Huh? With Sue, that some of us still looking for. We're still looking to find Sue to sue. So if the corruption is there, then you could imagine ministers, like Efron must come to tell us how many contracts his brother-in-law get. He must come to tell us that. Efron must come to tell us about all of these monies that they're spending on the false pretense. That's why he must come to tell us this MOM or wherever it be. They must come to tell us about all of these things. Efron must come to tell us, and Priya Manikchan must come to tell us why on World Teachers Day, October 5th, not even a pencil you couldn't give to the teachers. When you're spending all monies all over the place, Wild West doing all kind of stupidness, they must come to tell us those things. So the corruption is a big mess. When you get bees and they reach a certain size, you're happy because you can call the bee man to come to get the honey. The corruption under the PPP, it oversized. Let me say that. It's oversized. So the only thing to cut them off, like Nigel Dharamlal, I remember he said in Parliament that they're bringing bangles, they're bringing a whole container bangles. The only thing to cut off the corruption with the PPP is to put the whole pack of them, including the man who collected the law books. All of them, you must put bangles on their hand. That's the only way corruption will stop in this country. But it's corruption and more corruption and more corruption and plenty more corruption in Guyana under the PPP. So Airfred must come to tell us those things. I hope he's taking notes, or somebody who's listening to this program, that they're making notes of what we're saying so he could include that in his speech. But let me tell you what, he wouldn't come to tell us that. He will come there to say, oh, they tried to rig the elections. Oh, you will come to tell us about transparency and democracy. That is what they will come to tell you in Parliament, to talk about in Parliament tomorrow. But when you're talking about transparency, you must talk to yourself, because so many things have happened under Airfront stewardship that if he was a man, a proper man, he would take one step back and don't talk about corruption, don't talk about democracy, don't talk about rigging elections, and talk about, look, opposition, y'all come and join me and let's make Guyana a better place. That is what you should talk about tomorrow.
Dark as ever. Guyana is dark as ever. Not honorable, but horrible. We're fastly approaching curtains down, and so much to go. So much to go. I don't know if we can tea for 5 minutes here or there, but I really want to get a comment on discrimination and the oil and gas sector, and the benefits not reaching the people, and the discrimination. I know we're out of time, and as fast as you can, if you can just shine some light on the discrimination and the oil and gas. The money ain't reaching the people, so to speak, in ordinary terms. The people broke. Mr. Jordan, take it away. And at the same time, you could give your closing remarks so we could.
My brother. Okay, I will. Yes. So, discrimination, it is within the DNA of the People's Progressive Party. They are experts at discriminating against not only Afro-Guyanese, but any other Guyanese, Amerindians, East Indians, support them. So the nation has mutated, it has matured to a level that they discriminate against you, even if, as people say, oh, we're all East Indians, so we won't be affected. But that was probably the PPP of Donald Ramatar, or probably, earlier time. But it has mutated. And they're now political discrimination is the weapon that they're using. It is widespread in every single region. I'll give you one story quickly also. Just a few weeks ago, we were someone called to Bath Settlement, a family there. The family chose to support the coalition. The family and of course, they came and they decided to say, we will work with the coalition. And this is no secret, because the family, that phone calls came from Jafar Ali and all those at Freedom House in Region. And they say, y'all better don't make Jack Dio know, and don't make who know that you're supporting the coalition. But we didn't just decide to support the coalition because we feel like supporting the coalition. They said we were pushed because they said it is the PPP who are discriminating against them. They said the PPP send, because the husband, as if he's supporting the coalition, they send the man from Central Housing and Planning to attack them, and they send the man from GRA to check on the license and all what man and what money they're supposed to have in order. They send the officials from the NC, send the one not too far from him, just about 4 houses, that sits on the regional council. They to interrogate and to frustrate them. And so it is widespread, my brother. The wife said to us that, look, she sat and she saw a number of persons, she got ladies in the community that they ain't get too much, much of their own. So she wanted them to just give them the cash grant. She said, well, Abby know that all of you want, so she think he gonna give. She said the day when the name call, all of them people name call who get everything and nice, and me tell you just so the lady, all body get. And them 2 old thing were poor and live in Rockdown House, and so them 2 nothing. But she said will live or will get a house just behind the old lady. And the man is alleged the house that is alleged to be the owner of the house is this a senior MMA. He said this one build house from the same workers, monies that they're sharing, he's getting giving somebody and they're doing the work. So this discrimination be maturing it. They're exports.
I want to jump in. I want to jump in.
Yes.
I want to jump in. I bought some time. I know you guys are busy, but we just bought some time. So
that's okay.
please dig into it because I was told that the program is hot and they don't want to go. They want to be informed. So we managed to get some time. So please let the Guyanese people know exactly where the corruption is and what they should do come 2025 or whenever they call election. If it's tomorrow, we ready. The place is too dark. We got to do something about it. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, because the young people recognize it is dark, and we, the APNU and AFC, we took the young people out of darkness in 2015, and we are prepared to take them out of darkness come 2025. But let me get to this story. Every single community in this country attests to the PPP's discrimination against all parts of society. And the woman, as she was saying, she said she went to Viola, took down the names, and she said, man, the woman that is here and the other two, the people, they didn't get the money. She said, but I put on the name. So when the list reached Bart Settlement Freedom House, them scrap the people name because they said they don't know them that who. So if they don't know them that who, you can't collect. So it is clear that if you don't know name correct, the people can't get. But Damlal, who was a part of the ring of finalizing the list, he know people, so who he know he take off, and they got them in the want to be PPP. My brother is a farmer, and they have several farmers in region in Lovely Last, the village that I'm from. And when they saw, I told him, I said, when they see Jordan, you hope to say cock duck. But the guy, this is a PPP guy, wanting to be, I would say, a bit fair, put some words on him. He put the name, I don't know, unknowingly to me, the name of my brother on the list. Reach in front of us, they said Jordan and work scratch. They said one of the person said this neighbor, the guy has a very large farm. If you see sweet pepper, if you see cash crop, they say, is he neighbor? Scratch. So they ain't concerned whether these people are truly from. It is just that, oh, is he brother? Is he neighbor? Is he treat with the MP live? Scratch. And I think about farmers. One of the young man is a cattle farmer of East Indian descent, but he lives in my street. Scratch. Discrimination. And so saying Guyana to wake up and understand that the discrimination does not only at African Guyanese door, it knocks at every single door once you're not supporting the People's Progressive Party civic. I want to touch, before I go to oil and gas, because it is in my mind, it is flowing. You're talking about corruption. Corruption is not only about this money and the irregularities in government office, you know. We got political corruption that Jagdio must never again speak about corruption in Guyana. Jagdio has no right to speak about he has no right to speak about free, fair, whatever election or his government. I can recall that it was Barrett Jagdio, the second vice president of Guyana, who had to apologize to the daughter of the late Mrs. Jacobs, whose name appeared on the
The voters list for
of
the local
nominated
government.
last local. When they went to the place where the place of polls, the office of the returning officer, where we had to submit the list. I don't know if you remember the video. The fighters, they brought police, even the females that were with me, and they wanted to submit their list first. And when they submitted their list, I knew something. And you know, Jack Dio, since he opened him out, he just talked about that one, Carol Smith Joseph, and that. But she's a political scientist in her own right, and she understands the election machinery. And so we sat and we said something is amiss. Jack Dio and his people, they put a set of their people name on the list as
I believe.
nine. I get woman funeral program right in front of me, and the woman name on the list. I said, but this woman buried before this whole thing. This woman done dead and gone. May her soul continue to rest in perfect peace and rise in eternal glory. You know, in rising glory. But the point I'm making is that Jagdio cannot speak about any form of corruption. He should not step into fair, transparent election when we are remembering the 47 or 49 ballot boxes on the East Coast, when we are
Uh-huh.
remembering the dead people that
Yep.
as vote, when oaths of identities, when we are remembering all the persons who are would have migrated and they voted, when we remember the
Mhm.
list, then chief officer who provided the evidence that Guyanese are overseas and they would have voted on the day of election. Jack Joe must not speak about free and fair election. Ali speak about
Mhm.
stealing election when it was Ali's list of nominators, when 90% of them across this country in the last local government election, persons were writing to GCOM asking for their names to be removed from the list because they never signed the list. Jack
Never.
was never speak about stealing election when it was the PPP who tried their utmost in many of the areas to coerce persons to sign lists, walking around with lists, but lists of development and to bring about relief in communities.
Uh-huh.
And know
Uh-huh.
this fraud that of nominators, Jack Dio and Ali must never be given the chance free and fair election in Guyana when they are the chief architect in stealing and rigging and
Yep.
because they know
Mhm.
what they would have done and they have done it in such a manner that they think they get off at 2020 elections. But let them know that we are vigilant. But that apart, I just wanted to let Jack he mustn't go there and speak about free and fair
Yep.
elections when they actually start they as a matter of fact beginning now up the machine that they have already started to set up how they would rig the 2025 elections. And they're having a big fight over at Freedom House because one man want go now and one man want go until the end. And so it's a big fight. If you go now, we stand a chance of not losing so badly. And if you go till then, we're gonna lose more bad. So you must not people. So their plan is that they're trying to buy time they could fix this whole thing. But even the people inside the People's Progressive Party are fed up of the nonsense that is
Yep.
going on. This oil money reaching nobody who are ordinary poor people governor. It ain't reaching the people in Wismar and Mackenzie, the ordinary man. It ain't reaching the people in Albaiston. It ain't
True.
reaching the people who are in Cow Dam in Region 6 and Boys Avenue, proper, let me just come out properly. Reaching the people in Belladrum and Buxton, it is definitely not reaching the people in Perica and Freed and Hoop. It is not reaching right in my region in Bushel and Bad Settlement because they are saying to us that they are not enjoying all that these people are talking about. They ain't seeing it. They're not feeling it. You understand? And so this whole fastest growing economy, this whole oil and gas thing, I will leave it for the experts. But I know for a fact And the economists who will tell you by figures and so on what is what and what in which it. But I can tell you, as an ordinary Guyanese and as a representative of the people, the monies that we have garnered so far from the oil and gas sector has not yet reached and will not reach the ordinary man once the PPPC is in government. And so I say for Guyana to go, as my comrade leader would say, the PPP must go. And I end by asking Guyanese to organize, to put on their 2020 vision, to put on the set of a rational thinking Guyanese. And once they can see and comprehend and vote for the APNU at the next general and regional elections and support a coalition that cares them. Thank you.
Well said. Ms. McDonald, over to you.
Well, you know, poor people governor, when you talk about corruption and discrimination, that's the PPP right there. And so I'm going to start off with talking about those pink slips. They got people right across this country who can show you thousands upon thousands of pink slips that they're still holding in their hands from since COVID time. When they issue those persons pink slips, knowing fully well that they're not going to give them any COVID relief. So when you talk about discrimination, they're right here. And everybody could tell you about discrimination. And like Vince Roy said, the discrimination for the PPP, it ain't got face, it ain't got color, it ain't got race. Anybody who not with them, you're going to be discriminated against. So we got the pink slips. Just after they got into government in 2020, installed into government in 2020, we saw the blatant and wanton dismissal of thousands of public servants. You remember that? Public servants who got PhD and all kind of thing, simply because they presumed that many of those public servants, they are linked to the coalition. They were dismissed. If you want to talk about discrimination, look at what is happening at the University of Guyana, our premier, highest learning institution. We got the University of Guyana, and rather than this government boosting up our University of Guyana, you know what they've decided to do? They come out with the gold scholarship scheme that allows them to thief. The gold scholarship they're giving to all kinds of universities in India. Some of them ain't even got no recognition. If you go to Canada, you can't carry the certificate there because it's not recognized. If you go to the States, the same thing. So they got all these universities in India, all these universities at IFLOT. They probably got it at Lenora by now. All these fake universities who they're giving monies to and offering them. But you got the University of Guyana, and you're not looking to expand this university. Now, if that is not discrimination, then somebody else tell me what is or what isn't. Let's look at the Critchlow Labour College. Robert Prasad went to the Critchlow Labour College. Critchlow Labour College gave him a second chance. And you notice what they're doing to the Critchlow Labour College? Because that's the college that offers ordinary poor people children a second chance if you miss it at the secondary school. And they have stopped the subvention since Barry Jagger was president that they offered to the Critchlow Labour College. You know why? Because you got some people there like Lincoln Lewis and Norris Whitton when Coretta MacDonald sat there as president and so, who they can't bring nonsense to. So once you toe in the line with them, your institution will suffer. Let's look at recent as the GTU. Look what they did to the GTU. The judge ruled in favor of the teachers. You know what Anil and his government and Airfront did? They appealed the decision of the judge. They're appealing that. We have the appeals decision going. So that there again is discrimination. And you know what they jump out to say? Oh, the GTU's issue. It's political. It's political. Mind you, in 2018, our issue wasn't political. But in 2024, it's political. So they've discriminated against the GTU. They cut off the Jews from the teachers. The teachers didn't pay the teachers' Jews not being remitted to the GTU anymore. Discrimination. Let's look at what has happened at villages like Liverpool, Lancaster, Manchester, Ulverston, Alness, Salton, Hoxtyle, Brighton, Evesham, all those villages, 43 and so on. Discrimination to the max. Those farmers there, they have suffered when we had the flood. And you know what? When they bullied them and they got the president to stop there, as some folks would say, the presidents to stop there. You know, when the farmers started asking him questions, you know what he said? He didn't come here to hear that. No, these people got to tell you about their concerns. They lost crops. They lost the livestock. And you know what? Not even Mustafa himself, who lives, well, I don't know if he's still living there. He's from Bloomfield. Not even Mustafa himself couldn't go and didn't offer those people the kind of relief that they needed to have. Again, discrimination, and then they talk about was something one Guyana. I don't know where they're getting that from, because we got 4 Guyanas, not one. And Irfan must tell us that is 4 Guyanas. They got not 1 Guyana. Maybe he's right, 1 Guyana for the elite, but you got 3 other Guyanas for ordinary people down here. So when we look at what is happening there, blatant discrimination. When we look at jobs that are being offered, you got your daughter with 11 grade 1s and 9 grade 2s or 6 grade 2s and a grade 3. But because of her name and because of the association of her parent or parents, she can't get a job in the government, in government institutions or government sectors. She can't get a job. I remember vividly there was a young lady who applied for a job. Her first name, I'm not going to give the first name because they don't know exactly who, but her last name was Passad. She sent in her application, was called for an interview. When the young lady who was manning the persons in terms of them going into the interview, when they came to Passad and they called for the Passad, the girl put up her hand. And you're Miss Passad? Yes, ma'am. You're ex-Passad? Yes, ma'am. The lady look again. She went into the room and then she came out and she said, we'll ask, you'll come in just now. By the time she got into the room, she had to answer 2 questions and that was the end of her. Discrimination to the max. So when they talk about them reaching out to Guyanese and reaching out to Guyanese, they reach out to selected few. Let's look at the 10-day workers. If you don't put on the red t-shirt and go when they have their functions, then you don't have a job anymore. And they discriminate against these people and they threaten them all the time. And you know what? Many of these 10-day workers are forced to put on a red t-shirt. They're forced to go to some of the forums that the PPP got, because if they don't go, then they're out of a job. And the little $40,000, it does do wonders for them because they ain't getting any more money coming from anywhere. And this is the kind of discrimination we talk about. Let's look at what transpired at the Ministry of Education again with the GTU. There is a housing revolving project. We've been to several banking institutions. The bank said, we can't do this, we can't administer this project for y'all because we're not going to be making anything much. So we can't do it for you. The GTU recommended the Guyana Public Service Credit Union, where over 4,000 or 5,000 of our members, our teachers are members of that credit union. We went there, we spoke with Trevor Ben and his team. They gave us a whole package in terms of a proposal of how this project can run, how they can run off this, administer this project and run it off for us. You know what Priya Manik-Chan said? As long as Trevor Ben is there, he can't spend her government money as if this money is she government money. Again, that came up and they said, no, they prefer to do this under the Ministry of Housing. Well, don't talk about housing. We had the land corruption going. And so now they want to put this housing revolving project under the same Ministry of Housing for them to administer it. So when you talk about discrimination in this country, the PPP are king for it. And I can go on and on to talk about contracts. In Linden, you know how many contractors we got in Linden? But it's only a selected few could get contracts in Linden, and they bring persons from outside of Linden and give them work in Linden. And so if that is not discrimination, then somebody else got to tell me what is discrimination. And so the PPP, they enjoy doing this because in their minds, their thinking is like the one guy who was the attorney general said he's a chat tree. So if you're not a chat tree, you're falling for whatever other tree, if you're not a chat tree. And so that's their thinking. They have categorized Guyanese into that caste system. And so it's a pleasure for them to throw crumbs to give you so that you can always be crawling to pick that up and you're always running behind them. But I want to say to us, every time you hear them withdrawing monies from the Natural Resources Fund, but we must ask, and we've been asking, and the poor people out there have been asking, where are these monies going? Because it's not coming to us. I remember under the coalition government, they had said there that every month, each household, there was an allotted sum that each household would be able to receive coming out of the oil boom. We have not seen that yet, and I'm sure some of us will never see it. You know how many persons have died from 2020 to now, and they ain't see, they ain't taste, they ain't feel, and they ain't even passing nowhere around the oil monies that they're talking about. But what I know for sure is that Guyana has become a roundabout country. You know, under the PPP, they're like monkey see, monkey do. Everything they see happen somewhere, they want to bring it. So Barbados is the country of roundabouts. Well, you know the relationship they got with Barbados. So Guyana now has become a roundabout country. Every two turn you make is a roundabout. Every two turn, and that's where our monies are being wasted. That's where it is spent and wasted. And friends of good friends of the PPP, that's what they get. They get their drawbacks from that. And like Vince Roy was saying, every time you get a contract, you have to pay a percentage to Freedom House, and whoever the minister is, his allies will be there to collect his percent. And that is why corruption will continue to be rampant in this country. Because if you bid for a contract for $90,000, let me just put it roughly like that, and then you have to take out from that 90,000 10% to offer the Freedom House, and then you got to give somebody else 10%. You understand why we having buildings that are cracked, buildings that are half completed, buildings that are only shell, and you don't have anything else because the monies can't do. And that's what the PPP are about. And I hear my colleague talk about Priya Manichan. You know, I have to talk about her every time. I don't care whether she say I'm obsessed about her, but I got to remind them very often. I don't be obsessed about women. I don't get no kind of excitement thinking about women. But when they do foolishness, I gotta talk about it. And if it means every time I gotta talk about it, I have to talk about it. So Priya and your goons, I'm not attracted to Priya in any way. Priya nowhere down my line. I remember God made man and God made woman, Adam and Eve. And so I'm always attracted to the Adams. So Priya, get it out of your thoughts. But I want to say this. When you talk about the corruption and discrimination, you go to the Ministry of Education, you're going to see how many of our senior education officers who have been sidelined. You got, and I'm going to call the names, you got Carol Ben. She was appointed ACEO primary. You know what Priya Manichan did to her after a few mornings? Redesignated her to ACEO. She still kept the ACEO position, but she was redesignated or reassigned to health and family life. Now, Carolyn do not study in that area, you know, but she has been shifted in a corner there because when you're at the primary level, then all the grade 6 results got to come to you. So you would know who child do well and who child at top of the marks, so that didn't do well at the top of the marks, so they're sending them to Queen's College. So they pull her off of that. You got Marcia Paddy, another senior official at the education at the Ministry of Education, not a sideliney. Well, let me talk about the late Genevieve Whitened. You all know the story. Genevieve Whitened stayed for 7 years as the chief education officer and was never confirmed. So when we talk about discrimination under the PPP, it's widespread. Everywhere, every ministry you got it. But you know what? They instill fear into these workers. And so many of these public servants, they don't want to come out to talk about them openly. But when you meet them in their little groups, you hear them talk about it. Don't talk about what's happening at the prisons. Don't talk about what's happening at the Guyana Defense Force. In the Guyana Defense Force, I just learned that when you become a lieutenant and so on, you're no longer entitled to duty-free concession and so on. And I want to know is who giving people these kinds of authority to change all of these things. Imagine you have a lieutenant there who went through the course. You come out with whether it's a 1 paper or 2 paper on your shoulder, and you can't have access to some of the benefits that were there before. All of a sudden they change. And so we want to now balance off all of these agencies. They want to balance them. Ethnic balancing. The same thing in the Ministry of Education. Discrimination again, where the chief education officer said to some of the officers there who completed the cadet officers program, and he sent them back to their schools. And you know what he said then? It was reported that he said then that when the Granger's government was in office, Granger government took plenty black teachers and made them cadet officers, put them through the cadet officers program so that they can become education officers. And he has to balance it, so he has sent a whole lot of them back to their schools. That's the kind of discrimination we have to deal with in this country. Look at Saddam Hussein. There was no vacancy notice that was put out there for the vacant position of chief education officer, but the man was selected above all the other senior officers and made the chief education officer. I ain't even sure that he got a qualification for it. But this is what we have happening in Guyana. But the only thing that could change it, is for you, the Guyanese people, for us to go out there. The registration process is still on. Go out there, get registered, get your ID cards, and come out in your numbers and vote the PPP out. And let me tell you what, they're going to come to you with swinging with all the Grangers. Well, of course, they can't change the Granger. They got to live with that Granger. They can't change it. They're going to come to you swinging with those Grangers. Take it because it is yours, but go out there and vote correctly. We have to vote these people out. I just need to go back a little to tell you. Before 2015, anywhere, any port you went to and you put that green book, people look at you with scorn. Right in Barbados, y'all remember the cold bench that we used to have to sit, that our folks used to have to sit on, and in the cold room? And when Granger came into office, all of that was changed. Everywhere around the Caribbean and further, people respected that green book when you placed that on a counter, when you entered a port. You know what the PPP did as soon as they came into office? They reversed that so that people no longer have respect for Guyanese citizens. They treat you anyhow. But now that we got oil, some of them come in, they're flouncing up themselves nice and so on. But the discrimination, it continues. And people got to vote these people out in order to change Guyana and to bring Guyana back to where we used to be. Look at the city of Georgetown. If that is not discrimination, then what else is? Look at what's happening in New Amsterdam. Look at what is happening in Particle. Look at what is happening in Linden. And you want to tell me that that is not being discriminated? That's not discrimination? Then something got wrong with some of us. Look at what is happening in Region 2. You know, in certain parts, you look at how they manage, look at the funding that they get. But you compare that with what's happening in New Amsterdam and in Linden. You compare it and you'll see what I'm talking about. So the PPP, they're no good for Guyana. No good whatsoever. Not even one of them. Because if they themselves couldn't say when the allegations were leveled against Dharamlal that you're wrong, then you must understand what we face in this country. And you know what? the ice past our indigenous people. 5, the children who died. 20, that's the belt that Priya will wear for her for life. 20 lives. And you know what? It was simple. All you had to do, you don't have to go to university to do that. All you had to do is to get a hammer or a torch and cut those grills off of those windows. But you know what? They sacrificed the lives of 20 indigenous children. And then to add injury to that wound, they give them $5 million, as if the children's lives were worth $5 million. The allegations against Dharamlal, zip. More allegations, zip. Y'all think these people be people easy? Them in ordinary, they come from the Phantom Squad. So them in ordinary. And we got to wheel these people out of here and bring back decency to this country because they're not decent.
They're indecent indeed. Before we go, I didn't get your comment on the oil and gas and the money not reaching the people.
Well, I think I said it, but I probably glossed over it very quickly. But let me say to you, it's not reaching the people. The ordinary man still have to struggle. Everybody in this country got to struggle except the PPP and their cronies. Their friends, their families, their flatterers, their favorites. Everybody else struggling. The oil money ain't reaching them. And because the oil money cannot reach our people, you've seen a rise in crime and everything else. If you check under the coalition, you will see the rate of crime had dropped significantly. You check now, you'll see what is happening. Under the coalition, because cost of living was balanced to a certain point, I remember the Home Affairs Minister then, the Minister of Public Security then, had an amnesty, and he went out there to speak with residents, and there was an amnesty where people were throwing their guns into the police station, dropping them in front. You check what is happening now. Anybody, got weapons. I just saw today a constable was found with a Glock something at the other end of the Demerara River. The bridge, the Demerara Bridge. He was taken to Lagrange Police Station and he was placed in the lockups. But Crimes Unit take it over, and you know what? That was the end of it. That was the end of it. And so these things are happening because the resources that are for the people are not reaching the people. And you know what the saying says? A hungry man is an angry man, an angry man is whatever it say. That's what's happening. And so those who don't have will seek to take from those who have. And in doing that, innocent persons get caught up in that. Because, people like me and Vince Ryan, so we got bodyguards. And so when the men out there don't have it and they feel we have it, they will come after us, and some of us will lose our lives. But Jagdi and them ain't gonna lose their lives because they got 5 and 6 and 8 cars driving around all over the place. And just to touch a little bit more on discrimination, look at what happens in the streets. Discrimination against the ordinary man. If a minister coming down the road, everybody they're forcing off the road with all these Christmas lights what they got on these vehicles. Minister got lights, minister son got lights, minister daughter-in-law got lights, minister granddaughter got lights, all of them got lights. Discrimination against poor and ordinary people, all the side chicks and everybody get lights on the vehicle, and they're bulldozing you on the streets. You got to pull in, and the thing is, our streets have become so crowded now because of the amount of vehicles that we have here. But yet, these people are bulldozing you when they're coming through, and you have to stop whether you're going to hit somebody else's car. They don't care, but you must clear the way. And that in itself is discrimination against the ordinary people, because I don't have lights like you, and somebody else don't have lights like you. And so these are the kinds of immoral acts and unauthorized and illegal acts that are being perpetuated against the ordinary Guyanese people. So the oil money is not reaching us. So things tight plus the dark.
Things dark and tight indeed. Mr. Jordan, I know you gave your closing remarks, but I noticed a comment and person still want you to, probably to brush the wrong. And so I'll give you an opportunity to give your closing remarks once and for all.
Yes, I did. Mr. Goff, I did notice that comment there from Mrs. Aziz.
Aziz.
This matter that she's referring to here is one where again corruption, again nation, the PP through MMA and a known officer at the MMA ADA board of directors, who is the vice chairman, as they would place him. All the years I've never heard of vice chairman on the board, but I know of chairperson, the GM. Allegedly, Mr. Rahim stated that Zaid Rafuddin took his land and sold it to another man. Then we find in the same agency, it is alleged that he took 115 acres of state land just a few days ago and sold it to another person. This is the level of the country. So these ordinary PPP officials are lords unto themselves, and they appear over the ordinary Guyanese as lords because they suddenly have control over what the state has. And so he sold the man's land. The man's a migrant. The man is an overseas, based Guyanese who returned to build his country. And he's from Bushlat village. And this is what I'm telling you again. You know what has beat them up, Coretta? Is that I just go into these communities and they just want to know how I reach and how I go in and how I come out, but they just can't be the biggest racist. But they don't know that what they say and my actions are different. Because you can paint me as the biggest racist because I fight for the rights of ordinary people, because I tell you the street in Belgium or I got to build a street in Trafalgar, you call me racist. So what about Bushland? I don't have to tell you about Bushland because you build all the streets in Bushland. So what do I have to tell you about Bushland? But it's about it here. This man, Zaid Rafuddin, is operating out of MMA as a powerhouse, and he has caused Mr. Rahim, as he rightfully alleges, to lose his land, and his business is in jeopardy. The man lost 2 crops of 150 acres of land. He could not cultivate for 2 crops, and so he is at a point, he's so frustrated. About a month ago, he did an interview with me where we played it on our party page. The man he is left without words. Let me put it that way. And so I believe when you look at it in a holistic manner view, you recognize that the PPP, they're discriminating, victimizing, and having corrupt acts against Afro-Guyanese. It is against all Guyanese. And again, I stress it, once you are not affiliated with the PPP, it doesn't who you be, you're going to get what they normally do. And so I want to say to Guyanese as I close again.
Ben Troy, before you close, let's not forget the very Miss Aziz, they lost their butcher shop. They lost their butcher shop.
Well, all of Guyana would know that it is the People Progressive Party Civic who own the butcher shop of the Aziz, Mr. Jamal, who is a rice farmer. And the leaf came, he lost hundreds of kills and hundreds of acres. I spoke about it in the National Assembly. To date, he has received not $1 from the government. You know why? Because he support the AP and UAFC. Mr. Aziz, with his butcher shop on the road, trying to make a living with life and as a family and surviving on the butcher shop and the meat and the beef and what they do, and she do other side jobs with the eggs and so on, and make the lovely plantain chip. You know, poor people go from nowhere, come and gotta buy some for you so that you can take it back. But they try their best, and we know the names are on record, and you see the corruption again. It is the Guyana police force who destroyed the file with the young man who set the shop on blaze. I want them to know that we know who is the young man, and how he's fronting himself as one of the best PPP operatives that they could have. But I know the leader always talk about it. When you see them shielding under the PPP, you must find out
why
corrupt or you know, they have some dirty past, some wicked, evil thing that they would have done. So he did a criminal act. He's a criminal, and we know him, a resident of Bushland, and we are waiting for the right time to put our hands on him. But the Guyana police force, at the command of the very head of the force, those in high command who are corrupt, and we know the ones who are corrupt and the ones who are good officers. They instructed that the file be destroyed and the matter not be pursued. And so the man, it just went, wash out. But we know, and the people are now sensible and vigilant and wiser. Mr. Governor, give me 1 minute. The people of Bushland are saying they were wrong to burn down the butcher shop of Mr. Aziz and Mr. Aziz, because they now recognize the true PPP. And you know what some of the people in Bushland are now saying? They're saying to Mrs. Aziz and Mr. Aziz that they're sorry that they actually stood with the PPP and turned against them, but they now see who are the true representatives of the people, because it is the very Aziz and the very Lachman Aziz that they have to run to times. Call MP so he can come and look into this. And so when I read, look, they got a PPP counselor. Well, I shouldn't say the PPP counselors who, when things can't go right, they call the AP a new member parliament. And when I raise my vice regional chairman run and he fix it, and the PPP council says it's a good thing it's up because you get them right where you want them. Look, it is ridiculous how the incompetence has gone to such high level. The corruption has gone to, and the discrimination. For Guyana to grow, the PPP must
go. And for people, governor, let me just remind our listening audience and those who are viewing us too. Discrimination recently, Melly Mel's mother and her grandmother. And if that ain't discrimination, and then they talk about how much 27 grams of weed they find somewhere at the back, when you had a minister's niece who was caught at the airport with cocaine strapped on her body, and she admitted that she did that. I saw her at the cricket. Up to a day like today, she didn't get jail. Up to a day like today, she didn't get jail. She was sent for what kind of examination? They said she mad. So they were sending her to get some kind of evaluation.
Mental evaluation.
Up to a day like today, she didn't get jail. But if it was your son or my son, they would have been facing 3 years imprisonment or more. Discrimination again.
I don't know. The discrimination is so it is here, there, and everywhere now. The 10-day workers not getting paid after a month of work, and what is really going on? What is happening in Guyana, man? I wish we had all the time in the world to unpack and let the viewers know. But I sure, Ms. McDonald, let me give you the closing remarks as I did to Mr. Jordan. I know you want to jump in still.
I just want to say to Orphan Ali, plan a proper speech for the people tomorrow. The Guyanese public are going to be listening to you. Our children will be listening to you. Tell them the truth and tell them something that will bring hope to them. They're tired of having false hopes. Don't come to them with rigging elections and stupidness. Tell them how you're going to restore the buses. Tell them how you will give breakfast. We got plenty monies now, and we want breakfast for all the children, not some. Tell them how you're going to restore the textbooks, the exercise books, the jump up what Priya doing there with she preposition self. It ain't making sense. Tell them the truth. Tell them the coalition couldn't build secondary schools because there were too many corrupt actions where we had to go now to redo all of those secondary schools that you left there, including the multilateral schools that Burnham built. And we had to go there to rehabilitate those schools and to build primary schools and build nursery schools. So don't come to tell people how much schools you build because people can't eat schools. Tell us that you have fixed, you've knocked down those latrines, and the teachers can now flush toilets with the click of a finger pressing a button down, or you pulling a handle down. Tell the people when you come tomorrow that y'all fix the water walls at Westminster Secondary School and that y'all fix the business at President's College, the School of Excellence. Come and tell us that tomorrow. Don't come to us with trash. And so, in closing, for Guyana to grow, the PPP must go.
Must go, they must. Viewers and supporters, what a discussion. We went beyond to educate and to inform you guys. Thanks for listening and thanks for being with us. And Miss McDonald and Mr. Jordan, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know we went beyond, but thank you a lot and hope to see you soon. Love you all. Stay well. Bye for now.
Bye bye.